He was at his desk, not hiding in a bunker, not moving between safe houses, not cowering in a mountain tunnel somewhere. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, supreme leader of Iran, ruler of 90 million people, architect of the most sophisticated proxy war network in the modern Middle East, was killed at his own desk, in his own compound, in his own capital, on a Saturday morning. Together with him were killed his son-in-law, his daughter, and his granddaughter, little child. And the world's first reaction was to argue about whether he deserved it. That tells you everything about where the analysis is failing right now. Let's get one thing straight immediately. This is not about Khamenei. This is about what just got agreed to, without a vote, without a treaty, without a single debate in any parliament on earth. With one operation, the United States and Israel established a new doctrine. Heads of recognized sovereign states are now legitimate military targets, killed at their desks by foreign powers, who then go on television and call it justice.
He deserved it. He funded Hamas. He funded Hezbollah. He had blood on his hands.
Maybe, probably. But let's follow that logic all the way to the wall. If the standard is now, this leader funds groups that kill people, then who else qualifies? And who decides? And what happens when the country making that decision is not the one you like? You open the door. You do not get to control who walks through it next. Now, let's talk about who needed this war. Israel needed it. Let's be honest about that. Israel looked at the trajectory. Hamas rebuilt, Hezbollah rebuilt, Iranian missiles getting more precise every year, nuclear program creeping forward, and made a cold calculation. The long-term threat was growing faster than the window to stop it. This is not irrational. That is a small country doing the math of its own survival. But here is the question Israel cannot answer in public. What comes after? Every single time the West has removed a bad leader in the modern era, the Shah, Saddam, Gaddafi, what followed was far worse by every metric they used to justify that removal. Not slightly worse, catastrophically worse. Why is this time any different? Let's talk about the United States.
America had to act. You can't let Iran get away with funding terrorism for 47 years. It was time.
Time? Interesting word choice. The US military has wargamed an Iran conflict for decades. The numbers are not classified. They are simply inconvenient. A sustained conflict costs between $1.7 and $2.5 trillion over 5 years. It produces oil shocks that undo every economic gain of the last 3 years. It hands Beijing a 5-year window to move on Taiwan uncontested. A 5-year gift. The United States did not need this war. So why is America fighting it? That is not a rhetorical question. That is the most important strategic question of 2026. And the answer lives not in Tehran, but in the specific offices in Washington, where specific people with specific institutional interests have been pushing for this exact outcome for years. Are those people serving American interests, or are they serving something else? Here is the frame that explains the last 6 months better than any deadline. Iran did not stumble into this conflict. Iran concluded, deliberately, rationally, and after watching everything they built get systematically dismantled, that fighting was less dangerous than continuing to avoid it. By the end of 2025, Iran had watched Hamas destroyed, Hezbollah's command eliminated, Assad gone, Syria, their land bridge to Lebanon, collapsed, their air defenses degraded, their nuclear program set back, every proxy they spent decades building broken or bleeding. And simultaneously, they watched nuclear negotiations being used not to reach a deal, but to buy time for the next strike package. At what point does a rational actor look at the negotiation table and realize it is not a place where deals are made, but a place where you are managed while you are being dismantled? Iran made a calculation. Continued attrition is guaranteed slow death. Maximum confrontation at least changes the terms. And here is what that implies. When a state concludes that fighting you is safer than submitting to you, your deterrence has already failed. The bombs are just announcements. How does the most powerful military alliance in human history arrive at a point where a sanctioned, isolated, proxy-diminished regional power decides that open war is the better option? That is not a question about Iran. That is a question about us. And before we go further, if this kind of structural analysis cuts through the noise for you, subscribe to Eagle's View right now. Hit that button. because the next 3 months are going to move faster than most people's ability to process. You need a map. This is where we'd build it. Now, the 40 days clock. Iran declared national mourning. 40 days. That is not arbitrary. It is Shia culture. 40 days after a martyr's death is Arba'in, the largest annual human gathering on Earth. Tens of millions of people. The regime's propagandists know this calendar better than their own birthdays.
The Iranians are celebrating in the streets. Half of Tehran was partying.
Yes, true, and also incomplete. The people celebrating have no organized political infrastructure, no alternative power structure ready to absorb a vacuum. A journalist who interviewed Khamenei personally said it clearly: Iran has no ANC. No structure that spent years preparing to govern the day after. What Iran does have is a martyrdom culture that was forged 1,346 years ago at Karbala. Hussein was outnumbered and slaughtered. He lost that battle completely. And every year, hundreds of millions of people treat that defeat as the defining act of their identity. You cannot bomb a martyrdom culture into submission. You can destroy its military. You can kill its leader. And in doing so, you hand it the most powerful recruitment narrative it has seen in half a century. The IRGC is not celebrating. The IRGC is making phone calls, reorganizing command, and calculating its next move with the patience of an institution that has survived 4 decades of maximum pressure by being the one actor in Iran that never ran out of time.
Iran is finished. Their air defenses are gone. Their commander is dead. This is over in 90 days.
That confidence, that specific, cheerful, historically illiterate confidence is worth examining very carefully. Because the United States and Israel are optimized for short, decisive, technologically dominant engagements. They are extraordinarily good at the first 90 days. Iran, however, is optimized for something completely different. Iran has been under maximum economic pressure since 1979. 47 years, still there, still fighting, still, as of this morning, launching missiles at the US bases across the Gulf. Their entire doctrine is built around making American power projection maximally expensive over time, not winning a single engagement, but winning the clock. Does either the United States or Israel have the capability, not the bravado, not the firepower, but the systemic endurance to fight a patient, distributed, grinding attrition campaign across a decade? When was the last time the American public sustained support for a Middle East military commitment beyond one election cycle? There are 2 conversations happening in Washington right now as we speak, not on television. One group believes this is the moment. Iran's proxies weakened. Russia tied down in Ukraine. China watching. The population will rise. The IRGC will fracture. 90 days and a new Middle East. They have been wrong about this exact scenario before. In 1953, in 1979, in 2003, in 2011. Each time with identical confidence. Each time leaving something worse than what they removed. The other group, smaller, quieter, less welcome at the podium, is doing a different math. You cannot fight Iran, they say, deter China, absorb $150 oil, and hold a domestic coalition together simultaneously. The variables do not resolve. They're not defending the Islamic Republic, nor do I. They are reading a force disposition map and a treasury projection at the same time and not liking what they see. Who is Trump listening to this week? Ahead of schedule, delivered by phone from Mar-a-Lago to CNBC. That answers the question. Now, 4 scenarios, and none of them are comfortable. Scenario 1. Martyrdom escalation. 10% probability. The sun gets elevated. Mojtaba Khamenei as the revenge narrative made flesh. Russia and China move from condemnation to active support, if not already. The UN Security Council becomes a battlefield. The world that was already fracturing among multipolar lines fractures openly and permanently. This is the low probability scenario that nobody has a model for, because nobody has been here before. Scenario 2. Negotiated capitulation. 15% probability. Military devastation tips the balance toward reformists. Iran signals through back channels. Trump gets his deal, sanctions relief for nuclear and missile constraints. The war hawks claim victory. The IRGC accepts because the alternative is dissolution. This is the scenario Washington is betting on. It requires the Iranian population to fill a vacuum that by every structural measure, no organized alternative is ready to fill. Scenario 3. Fragmentation, 25% probability. Without Khamenei's singular authority, Iran does not consolidate and does not surrender. It fractures, hardliners versus reformists. IRGC subfactions competing for succession. Ethnic peripheries, Kurds, Arabs, Baluchis, Azeris becoming active. US and Israel keep striking to prevent any unified command from forming. This is the most dangerous scenario for everyone, including the people who started this. Scenario 4. IRGC consolidation, 50% probability. The hardliners win the succession. Khamenei becomes the founding martyr of a new, more militant phase. Iran digs in for asymmetric war. The Strait of Hormuz becomes the pressure point. Oil goes to 150 and stays there. This becomes Iraq 2003, but with 3 times the population, a ballistic missile program, and a Shia diaspora across 7 countries. One of these scenarios is already beginning. The question is, which one? Watch the IRGC succession announcement. Watch the Strait of Hormuz shipping data. Watch whether any organized Iranian civil movement emerges in the next 30 days. Those 3 data points will tell you, before any analyst goes on television, which road just got chosen. And when the next Eagle's View drops, we go deep into each scenario, the specific tripwires, and what the outcome means for your country, your economy, and your family. Subscribe now. This is the analysis that does not wait for permission to tell you the truth. The machine changed gears on February 28. The symbolic skirmish that everyone expected, the calibrated strike exchange, the dramatic headlines, the markets dipping and recovering, that is not what just happened. What happened was a sovereign head of state was killed at his desk, along with his family. And somewhere in Pyongyang, in Beijing, in Moscow, and in every capital that does not have a nuclear weapon yet, someone just updated their threat assessment. You opened the door. The question is not walked out. The question is what just walked in. This is a wrap for today, dear friends, and I'll see you next week.